Wait, are you going to sleep there? While my brother and his wife were on a trip, I was babysitting my niece at my brother's house. As my niece happily talked about tomorrow's plans, she began to reach for the door of the closet, indicating it was time to sleep. To my surprise, without hesitation, she slid into the closet. I quickly grabbed her arm, and she looked up at me with a puzzled expression. I, Mary, a 24-year-old housewife, have a 5 years older brother. Both of our parents have passed away, so we've always had a close sibling relationship and have supported each other through life. Even after we got married, our bond remained strong, and we still consider ourselves family. While my husband's parents and I get along well, unfortunately, my in-laws live far away, making it difficult to rely on them for help. My brother and his wife had a shotgun wedding, but due to conflicts with her own family, they became estranged, so we both live without nearby support. However, our relationship has always been comfortable, with no reservations about asking each other for help. Additionally, both my brother and I had daughters, and with my daughter being born 4 years after his, our families became even closer. Our daughters, growing up as close as real sisters, developed a strong bond while living in the same city. As time passed, around the time my niece Kathy turned 10, I heard from my brother about their plan for a 10th anniversary trip. He said,
"Mary, if it's okay with you guys, could you take care of Kathy while we're away? We're planning a one-night, 2-day trip nearby, and we thought it would be nice to spend some time alone together as a couple after a long time."
Seeing my brother's happy and somewhat shy expression, I readily agreed, understanding it was an easy request. After a brief discussion about dates, I asked what time I should pick up Kathy. He shook his head, indicating I hadn't thought about it. It seemed they were concerned about leaving their house unattended with Kathy staying at my place, especially regarding security, so they asked me to stay overnight at their house instead. Despite laughing at his cautiousness, I couldn't argue with my brother's insistence on being careful. So, I entrusted my somewhat anxious daughter to my husband and decided to stay overnight at my brother's house alone. After spending ordinary days, the day of the anniversary trip arrived, and I went to stay at my brother's house as planned. Wanting to reassure Kathy, who seemed a bit anxious watching her parents leave, I held her hand as we bid farewell to my brother and his wife. It was the start of our 2-person house-sitting adventure. Initially, I thought of bringing my daughter along and having my husband pick her up only at bedtime. However, when I mentioned this, Kathy adamantly refused, unusual for her, saying absolutely no to bringing my daughter into the house. While she hadn't minded our family visits before, there seemed to be a reason she didn't want anyone coming today. Although she seemed lonely and expressed a desire to play with my daughter, she sadly understood she couldn't call her over. When I promised her we'd visit my place to play after breakfast the next day, her eyes sparkled. For Kathy, who usually played with my daughter in mind, I prepared games with slightly more challenging rules and puzzles that adults could enjoy too. As Kathy perked up, I asked her what she wanted to play. We spent time playing games, cooking dinner together, but Kathy always stuck close to me, looking around nervously, no matter what we did. Initially, I thought she might feel lonely without her parents, or perhaps she was still nervous, but hours passed, and nothing changed. I asked Kathy if something was bothering her, but no matter how many times I asked, she just said,
"I'm fine. It's nothing."
Her behavior, like being on high alert for something unseen, puzzled me. Finally, when it was time for bed, I would learn the reason. As Kathy changed into her pajamas, she cheerfully said,
"Let's sleep early today and leave for your house in the morning."
She opened the closet door with a smile, revealing a mattress and blanket prepared inside. Confused, I watched as Kathy quickly lay down on the mattress, saying goodnight and attempting to close the door. "Wait, Kathy. Are you sleeping there?" I exclaimed, surprised and raising my voice unintentionally. Kathy, with a serious expression, replied,
Yeah, but it's okay. I'll leave it slightly open. If I hear anything, I'll wake up right away.
Trying to conceal my confusion, I invited her to sleep together tonight. After several invitations, Kathy hesitantly crawled into my bed. She asked me to use my blanket because she wanted to keep hers inside the closet as a hiding spot, and I said, of course, yes. I asked her why she needed a hiding spot. She replied with a deep sense of concern.
Demon is coming.
At first, I found it cute, thinking she was still a child. However, what followed was enough to make me believe in the existence of the demon. Kathy trembled and clung to my arm, explained.
Demon is very scary and clever. They only come when my dad isn't home. If demon comes, I must never leave the closet until my mom defeats it. She always cries while defeating demons. I once tried to help mom, but I got scared when demon banged on the door.
Hugging the trembling Kathy, I sighed inwardly. Perhaps this demon truly existed. It wouldn't be a trick to get children to bed early. I was informed of my sister-in-law's infidelity unexpectedly. It troubled me deeply. If Demon was her mother's lover, he wouldn't come to this house when she wasn't here. Nevertheless, Kathy believed Demon only came when her father wasn't home. Today, with her father absent, she refused to let my daughter come over and remained by my side, vigilant of the windows and doors. Considering my brother's trust in his wife and gentle Kathy, I felt anger toward my sister-in-law. But at that moment, I just wanted to reassure Kathy. I held her hand and smiled. It's okay because I'm here today. Demon is smart, right? So maybe he'll be surprised to find a stranger and won't come in. Besides, Mom is with Dad today, so Demon won't come near. Despite my efforts to calm her down, Kathy remained anxious, fearing Demon's arrival more as time passed. To soothe her, I encouraged her to tell me anything she was worried about regarding Demon. I hoped that by addressing each fear, she would soon feel sleepy. However, hearing more unsettling truths from Kathy, I couldn't stay calm. Instead of putting her to bed, I took her, still in her pajamas, and left the house. I hurried back home in my car, explaining the situation to my husband. He and his friends went to stay at my brother's house. Around 10 p.m., my brother called, asking if Kathy had already gone to bed. He said to me,
Take a rest without worrying about your husband and daughter. Make sure to lock the door. Good night.
I was doing my best to keep my voice from trembling as I was strongly told not to leave the house. After hanging up, I looked at Kathy sleeping peacefully with my daughter and vowed to defeat Demon in my heart. The next morning, my husband returned after spending the night at my brother's house. As he recounted last night's events, I trembled with fear and anger. Reassured that my decision from yesterday was correct, I spent the day at home with Kathy and the rest of the family, waiting for my brother and his wife, who would come to pick her up. Upon seeing my face, my brother immediately interrogated me and Kathy about why we weren't at his house last night.
Why didn't you sleep at our place? How many times did I ask you not to leave the house? Even though you said you understood, what were you thinking? Just going back to your own house without permission?
My brother's intense protest about me breaking the promise filled me with discomfort. I coldly asked why he knew we weren't home during their trip. My brother answered,
Well, I made sure Kathy has a smartphone with GPS.
If that were true, he wouldn't have needed to repeatedly call me last night, insisting that we not leave the house. Checking the GPS would have easily revealed that we weren't at my brother's house. Suppressing the urge to immediately confront my brother, I continued the conversation quietly, so the children in the other room wouldn't hear. By the way, who were the two unknown men who came to your house late last night? What were they doing at a house where only Kathy and I should have been?
Did strangers come? It's a relief nothing happened.
My brother's voice trembled. But it wasn't fear of intruders or relief that his daughter was safe. His gaze darted around as if carefully choosing his words. Hey, about those guys. I pressed my brother further about the men who seemed like demons, but my sister-in-law's voice cut in, interrupting. It seemed she didn't want the conversation to proceed further. She insisted on calling Kathy strongly to come back home. When Kathy, who had been playing in another room, showed up at her mother's call, my sister-in-law forcefully took her hand. Suddenly, my brother changed his tone.
We haven't forgiven what happened this time, but we're leaving today,
he said, pushing Kathy towards the door to leave the room. Despite Kathy's reluctance to leave, my brother and sister-in-law forcefully tried to take her home, ignoring any attempts to detain them. Seeing Kathy reach out to me in resistance, I quickly pulled her close.
Hey! What are you doing?
My sister-in-law exclaimed as I shielded Kathy from her grasp, keeping the couple away. Desperate to take back their daughter, my brother and sister-in-law hurled aggressive words at us, advancing in anger. My husband and I were adamant about not letting them take Kathy away. Eventually, the police officers waiting at the entrance swiftly apprehended my brother and his wife. The police officer tried to calm down the bewildered couple, who were completely caught off guard by the unexpected turn of events. Understanding their situation, my brother claimed to the police officer that we were the ones holding their daughter captive and demanded that we be restrained.
My sister and her husband took our daughter from our home and locked her up here. Hurry! Please help Kathy! There's no time to waste holding me down. I won't run or hide, so let me go!
My brother pleaded. Kathy and my daughter, who had come out after noticing the commotion, hid behind me. They whispered to each other, puzzled by the situation, noting that they were not confined at all. Whether they heard that or not, my brother sternly instructed Kathy to come to him. However, she was too scared by her father's aggressive demeanor to leave my side. My sister-in-law stood quietly next to the police officer, only looking at my brother as if wanting to say something, but she didn't call for Kathy. As my brother continued to yell at the entrance, protesting against the unexpected turn of events, the police officer completely restrained him. Then, my husband held out his smartphone in front of my brother. Realizing this, I quickly instructed Kathy and my daughter to wait in the room they were in earlier, closing the door so they wouldn't hear anything. Confirming this, my husband silently began playing the video he recorded last night at my brother's house. As my brother and his wife watched the video, their faces turned pale. The beginning of the video showed two men quietly entering the room after turning the key in the lock, seemingly using a spare key. The men, appearing cheerful at first, greeted my husband while mentioning my brother's name. Then they asked,
"How much did you pay?" "I could get a discount because the girl was his sister."
They laughed and continued talking, mentioning their good relationship with my brother and his wife, which led to a further discount. They also said,
"We're lucky we play with the child today,"
showing a sinister smile. Though I couldn't see the screen, just listening to the audio sent shivers down my spine. Afterward, My husband's friend began questioning. Then the men realized something was off. They inquired about me and Kathy, our whereabouts, my husband becoming angry, and realizing we weren't there. Finally understanding the situation, the men hurriedly left. It seemed they hadn't noticed the recording until the end, or perhaps they intentionally didn't mention it. My brother, who was supposed to be close to them, seemed to tremble upon learning about the video's existence. With a pale face, my brother desperately claimed,
I didn't know anything. I was set up.
"Until I saw this video, I had thought my brother was innocent, and that my sister-in-law had plotted everything." However, the video clearly showed my brother handing over Kathy and me. Unable to feign ignorance any longer, my brother was taken away by the police. Despite my sister-in-law's attempts to deny involvement, the police, who had heard Kathy's testimony beforehand, insisted on accompanying them, as there were many questions to ask. Thus, both my brother and sister-in-law ended up under police care. In the following days, during police interrogation, my brother and sister-in-law confessed everything and were subsequently arrested. It turned out my sister-in-law had been inviting men to their home on nights when my brother was on night duty, accepting money from them. Realizing there was demand for children like Kathy within a certain circle, my sister-in-law meticulously used Kathy to avoid legal trouble. In order to protect her mother, who was being bullied by the demons, Kathy, unaware of the true situation, obediently posed for photos taken by the men. These were merely innocent photos, devoid of any sexual connotations. My sister-in-law would then develop these photos from disposable cameras and show them to her clients, auctioning them off for a high price. However, she only lent the photos and never sold them. Although I despised their actions, it should have ended as a story unrelated to my husband and me. However, when my brother discovered my sister-in-law's business, instead of criticizing her or protecting his daughter, he started gathering men to become clients. Thinking that increasing employees would increase sales, my brother decided to involve me in the business. However, he couldn't just ask me normally, so he forced me to work and came up with the idea of continuously threatening me by taking photos at the scene. So my brother and sister-in-law carefully chose a date, intentionally selecting a day when there were no neighbors around, and locked me and Kathy in their home. Then, they exchanged the spare key for a large sum of money and went on a trip to prove their innocence. The miscalculation for my brother and sister-in-law was that Kathy, who had always unquestioningly obeyed my sister-in-law's orders, disclosed the truth about the demons to protect me. While Kathy didn't fully understand the conversations happening in the house, she knew that the demons were targeting us. By conveying this to me, the hellish environment at my brother's house came to light. That night, after learning about Kathy's situation, I asked my husband to take videos of the demons. When they blabbered on endlessly, the police responded promptly when I reported them. Simultaneously, I reported to the Child Protective Services, ensuring Kathy's safety. Informing the police officers that my brother and sister-in-law were coming to our house, we finally managed to protect Kathy by having them apprehended. My brother and sister-in-law, arrested on charges including violations of the child welfare law and the anti-prostitution law, were sentenced to prison despite being first-time offenders. The photos of children accumulated over several years were deemed highly malicious. Once images are leaked onto the internet, they can never be erased. Although I was chilled to the bone hearing this from the police, fortunately, my sister-in-law hadn't digitized or sold Kathy's photos and had kept them securely, preventing any leaks. I don't understand how my kind and reliable brother could turn into such a terrible person. We had always helped each other out, but I had never noticed how twisted things had become. Regardless, I hope they face up to their actions. Following my brother's arrest, the demons, who were questioned by the police later, claimed their innocence, but they were also arrested on multiple charges, as photos of children were found in their homes and they were implicated in other crimes mentioned during the interrogation. Having defeated the demons lurking around us, we later inquired with the Child Protective Services about Kathy's future. With both her parents arrested and no one to take care of her, she had to be protected from her parents. My parents already passed away and my sister-in-law's family had cut ties, so Kathy was taken in by my husband and me. It was decided that if her sister-in-law's family couldn't accommodate her, Kathy would go to a foster home. After discussing it with my husband, we decided to adopt Kathy. She was like a daughter to us, and we couldn't bear to part with her. Thankfully, my husband agreed, and we decided to move to a region where my in-laws lived. My daughter eagerly awaited weekends to meet her beloved grandparents and was overjoyed when her dream of having an older sister, which she had always wanted, came true with Kathy's arrival. Finally freed from my brother and sister-in-law, Kathy adapted remarkably well to her new environment as a big sister, and we began to live a happy and peaceful life. How did you find this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.